Good evening, Warriors, and welcome to another edition of the R&R Sports Report. And for everybody listening on KLCZ, I'm very sorry for interrupting the Christmas music. You can email me at whatever Robert's email is. I forget what it is. We'll get it to you, and you can complain to him about me interrupting all of the joyous music. But we got a show to do. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Robert Hagan. Robert, how you doing?
It is a great evening here tonight, and I am surely excited to talk a little basketball, especially LCSC basketball here in hour number 2, and also some Gonzaga basketball. So
yes, we finally have a little bit of local games to talk about. Right when we decided to switch things up, we're going to talk all football the first hour. And then everything else will get pushed to the second hour. And we got a jam-packed show for you, especially in that second hour. As you said, we got LC women getting a couple of games in. Who knows when they'll be able to play again, if at all, in 2020. Nothing is on the schedule yet, but they got 2 in. LHS is getting started their basketball season. We got Gonzaga and WSU going. Lots of free agency news in both the NBA and MLB. Tyson fought in 2020. That was a thing. We'll get to all of that, but first, I just have to ask you, how was Thanksgiving, man?
we laid low. We didn't do much anything. Denise and I just kind of camped out at home as Tori couldn't really do much anything with her job, and with everything just going on, COVID and the school kind of wanting us not to do any travel, and we just kind of laid low and nice quiet evening at the house, and so really didn't want to do anything. But I think I told you, it was the night that I watched Jason Belmonte. He did his live stream from Australia because they don't celebrate, they don't do any kind of celebration of Thanksgiving down in Australia. So he got on and did about an hour show, and so mute the Cowboys, but then listen to Jason Belmonte on Facebook Live, and so that was my afternoon, and just kind of lay low. How about you?
It was not as quiet. My sister came up from Utah with her 3 kids, and those 3 kids combined with my 2 made it a very loud household at my mom's, who is listening right now. They had a good time. They haven't seen each other in at least a year, maybe a little bit more than that, with everything going on. I'm trying to remember the last time they did. I think Addie was just starting to walk at that point. So it was a lot of fun, but it was nice to have a little bit of quietness come the weekend. It wore the kids out, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Especially the age group that Addie is, and Chase being the junior high kid, he's ready to run around everywhere and wants to be outside. So I understand that.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it, and let's get into college football. And let's just start off with the big news story of the week, and that is Sarah Fuller becoming the first woman to play in a Power 5 conference game. Unfortunately, Vanderbilt's so bad that her only participation in the game was 1 kickoff, which at first I kind of felt bad because it didn't look like a good kick. But she said after the game that was the plan. It was a positioned scoop kick, and that was what they were going for as far as just trying to get the nerves out of the way. They do lose 41-0, so they dropped to 0-8. So that's the only time she sees the field. It's very cool that she says that she wants to stick with the team and learn from the other kickers who obviously were gone due to COVID reasons, and that's why she ended up on the team, just to kind of fill in. And it sounds like the team wants to keep her and have her back out there and see what she can do. There was so much hype for it, and then you get the 1 kickoff because your team just cannot get any points on the board.
Well, yeah, that was part of the reason why I had it on most of the days. I wanted to see, I want to see her kick a field goal because they had showed her doing practice a few different times, and doing decent, but and then all of a sudden, Derek Mason can't get his offense to do anything, and that it took him to I believe the second half to finally get the ball over the 50-yard line. But then that was it. I mean, there was no offense whatsoever with that game, and I kind of felt bad because I kept that game on there just to see what she could do, and and there was a lot more interesting games happening on some of those stations that we could have easily flipped over and watched, but it was kind of cool to watch her get the chance to boot the ball. But in the article I read today, they plan on keeping her going and doing, as none of the special teams folks have come back from Vanderbilt with the COVID stuff. So, she's probably going to get another crack at it this weekend.
And that chance will be against Georgia.
Yeah.
So you get one more kick, Sarah. You get one.
Yeah, no kidding.
One more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're talking about Derek Mason. He will not be back. He was let go of his duties in Vanderbilt again after an 0-8 start and getting shut out there. I'm not that surprised.
I'm not either. And I mean, Derek Mason, great player when he was in the NFL. He had great, decent college football. But that doesn't always pan out in the coaching field.
Right.
I mean, you could be the star player and then all of a sudden just go blah. And we'll talk about one of those that I think is happening in the NFL here in a little bit.
Let's talk about a fantastic player who could be really interesting once he turns pro, and that's Jarrett Patterson for Buffalo. 36 carries, 409 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
He had over 713 in 2 games and 12 touchdowns.
Yeah. He set the school record the week before with 301 yards and then just decided that wasn't enough.
That dude's crazy. I mean, just watching the plays, the cutback lanes that he has, and he reminds me of a smaller, almost Emmitt Smith cutting through the holes.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where he goes. Obviously, in the NFL, running backs are devalued a lot. We see like Indianapolis. We'll talk about him later because of other news with him. But Jonathan Taylor, fantastic college back, is part of a 3-headed monster for the Colts. Just you don't get that kind of run unless you're Saquon Barkley or Zeke. And even Zeke is having a down year, and Barkley got hurt, so it just kind of shows why NFL teams would like a committee there. So if one goes down, they're not set back too far. But Jarrett Patterson having himself a fantastic year. It would be really cool to see him in the Heisman race. I mean, he's going to have to do this every week, at least 300 yards to get his name out there with some of these quarterbacks that are going off. But it's pretty cool.
I think we're down to a 2-horse race in the Heisman. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I think even if he goes 8 crazy the next couple of weeks, I don't think he makes it.
No, it's so tough. Heisman anymore is kind of like the MVP in the NFL. It's almost always a quarterback. I mean, you will see position players get it a little bit more in the Heisman, but lately I can't even remember the last time a non-quarterback won the Heisman. Can you?
No, it's been a while. I mean, that was, God, I would say it's got to be.
That wasn't as far back as I thought.
I was thinking 2015, maybe 2016.
2015, Derrick Henry won it. And he was the only one since Mark Ingram won it in 2009. And then Troy Smith in 2006. Yeah, everyone else was quarterbacks. So,
I think they need to value that a little bit more. Even putting some of these defensive players that have played unbelievable the last few years, and not to even get a sniff at the Heisman. That's just, for me, unheard of. But they're finally letting a woman come in and play and kick the ball. Maybe we start seeing a little bit trend turning for MVP votes and Heisman votes and the popular votes. So anything's possible.
We were talking before the show about how I created all these cool banners. I mean, they weren't hard to make, and I was going to use them on our show. If you're watching on the R&R Sports Report on Facebook, which it is now on YouTube as well, if you want to search R&R Sports Report. It's also live on YouTube if you want to just go and give us a quick subscription over there. We'd very much appreciate it, as we're just trying to outreach to as many people as we can. But I made all these banners. I'm going to use them. So if you want to see that, it's nothing special, but it's there. Some other games, the top 3 all roll. I mean, Alabama crushes Auburn. I watched a little bit of that game, so it just got embarrassing. And they do that without Nick Saban. But really, Auburn's having a down year. 42-13 Crimson Tide. Notre Dame had a closer game with North Carolina, kind of pulled away late to win that one 31-17. But North Carolina, we've talked every week about how good that team is. And then Clemson, they get Trevor Lawrence back, and they just roll over Pitt 52-17. Any of that surprise you at all?
No, the top three were just kind of pretty well set. We knew it was going to be runs on all of them, but I think what they hyped up the most was, this is going to be Trevor Lawrence's last home game. Could it be his last home game? I think possibly, but if you look even at the top four in the country, or even down to the top 7 with Cincinnati and all that, does the shakeup anything below cause anything for these upper teams? And I think not. I mean, when Alabama can roll without Saban being there to coach them and yell them, and he even heard and made the comment that he saw plays that were not or should not have been run. I mean,
right.
He's got the yellow flag, and I'd hate to see what that guy's notebook looked like at the end of the game.
The coaching meeting the next day, I'm sure, was really interesting. There were a little bit of shakeup, though, in the top 25. Number 8, Northwestern, having a fantastic start. We're 5-0 against the toughest schedule in the NCAA. They lose a tough one to Michigan State, 29-20. And then in news closer to home, Oregon, because the Pac-12 just refuses to have one solid team, gets upset late by Oregon State, 41-38, when Oregon State scores 22 points in the fourth quarter.
That was a great game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat and watched it. It was crazy to see how the fog was affecting everything, and how Oregon just came out. They didn't look like themselves, and to see what Oregon State could do and just to shake things up. And now Oregon has dropped a couple places. Now we got to think, now the
Pac-12 has no chance.
No, but now the Huskies are up above them in the AP, but the Pac-12 just does not look good this year. But, it's the year basically to throw it away. And like we were talking, do we just asterisk everything for this year and just put, here we go.
It's normal with Pac-12 anymore. It's just, they just beat each other up so much you don't get in. My bowling partner, Tony, is watching the show, said he drove through Tuscaloosa right after that game, super packed freeway. Tony, I need a review of the Colts-Titans game that he went to.
That's just crazy.
He had great seats, too.
Oh, yeah. The pictures he posted on his Facebook page, that was crazy. Maybe we should get him to post some of those,
Mm-hmm.
And just, it's unbelievable how close he got to sit.
All right, let's get to, that fun C word is 20 games this week were canceled in college football, and there were some big ones. Ohio State, the number 4 team in the land, not only did they miss their game with Illinois, now they have issues this week, possibly as their coach Ryan Day will not be able to coach if they play the game against Michigan State. Now, if Ohio State cannot play that game,
they don't make it.
They will be ineligible for the Big Ten championship game, but they're still eligible for the college playoffs. It's just something that the Big Ten may do. You have to play 6 games, or the average games played for everyone in the Big Ten had to be a certain number. And I think I heard it on the radio the other day that there are 12 games left in the Big Ten, and 10 of them would have to be canceled for that number to get low enough. So that's not happening.
Well, the thing that I heard just before I headed over here tonight, and in the reveal show there on ESPN, was Reese Davis was talking about it. And it's already being thrown out there and swirled around. Does Michigan cancel your game against Ohio and throw a real kink in everything? And I agree with Reese. I mean, if you're teaching your program that you can't do it and you can't go just because we don't want to get embarrassed, that is taking away every part of, humility that you have to do, the right thing. I
Right.
mean, if you're going to
It would
get
be
crushed,
terrible.
if you're going to get crushed, go out there and get crushed and take it like a big man. But if you're going to cancel just to cancel to cost Ohio State from going into the playoffs or into the championship game, I mean, that's just. And I'm not a huge Ohio State fan, never have been, but I mean, that's just petty. But do you think Harbaugh does that?
No, I don't think so. I think he's gone anyways, and I think he would love to go out beating Ohio State.
Oh, yeah.
I think he would rather do that than
I
try to come up with a way. Because honestly, I mean, if you do that, and Ohio State can't play in the Big Ten championship, they might still make the playoffs. So you don't really hurt Ohio State that much.
Right.
You had some news on a Tennessee player.
Oh, just as about 10 minutes before we went live, we got reports that the Tennessee Vol linebacker Kevin Bennett was dismissed from the team. That's his second player dismissed this year in 2020, as he was pulled over for speeding near campus Tuesday morning, and he told the police that he had a 9mm Glock underneath the seat. They found 44 grams of marijuana, scales, and baggies in the car. So the son of NFL great Cornelius Bennett, who played for the Buffalo, has now been dismissed by the Tennessee Volunteers. So that program getting shook up even more.
Yeah, just you had read that right before we got going, and just come on, man. Just I know they don't do that segment anymore.
No, but I mean dude, you got a heck of a career ahead of you, and now you're going to get dismissed. And now what does that do? And I hate saying it for your family name, who Bennett had a heck of a years with Buffalo, and now you're going to disgrace your name by doing that. But come on, man.
Hopefully this sets them straight. I know it's going to mess up any NFL plans, but I think there's more things to worry about right now than that.
But we're talking about 44 grams of marijuana. You know he was getting ready to move it and sell it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's just stupid, especially in college.
Yeah, I would like to say I'm surprised, but I mean, you usually see that news a lot. Let's move on to the college football rankings, and this won't take long because nothing really changed. The top 8 all stay the same in the AP poll. The top 7 stay the same in the college playoffs, including Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State are still penciled in as your college playoff participants. BYU moved up 1 spot to number 13, and I want to say they have to be top 12 to make it to be eligible for a January 6th game. So I think they're still on pace to do that, because obviously there's teams ahead of you that most likely will lose and move up, but it's still disgraceful that they're 13.
And I'm not gonna dog on the dogs, but you know, Georgia's 7-2. Come on, BYU is sitting at 9-0. Why are you not getting a look? And they were talking about that as before I came over. I was listening to the playoff show, and you know, Reese Davis comes out flat out, and I mean, he was quite blunt with the questions like, why is BYU not getting the notoriety that they should be getting? And they're just, their strength of schedule is not going to let them climb much higher. So I mean, you got to win out, and hopefully Georgia takes another loss, and the one that is really crazy is Miami. How is Miami sneaking up the way they're playing?
I mean, I know they've played tougher opponents than BYU. And so I kind of understand that. I don't think BYU's a playoff team, but they should already be in that top 12.
Yeah.
But I do think if you are a BYU fan, as long as they win out, they're going to be playing in a January 6th bowl. Mm-hmm. I think that is pretty much set.
And I think they deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve it 100%. And then and you've heard me all season so far. I've been on the Cincinnati bandwagon. Mm-hmm. And I think they're getting the short end of the stick just because they're in the American. I mean, why? I mean, if you want to balance things out, we've got to figure out something a little bit different to put all these guys in the same thing. It's the same thing we dealt with for years as being those Gonzaga fans sitting there in the WCC, you know, and not getting in, and in the Mountain West when we were back and forth between. I mean, it was that Cinderella tag that we get put on. And that's unfortunately what's happening now, is that same idea of Cinderella tag for Cincinnati. Who would have figured Cincinnati is doing what they're doing this year, or Liberty or Coastal Carolina?
It's
2020
in a nutshell right there.
How do we compare these guys and get them what they deserve? Or even Buffalo with Patterson, the way he's been running. I mean, how do you get these guys the credit that they deserve?
Let's look at this upcoming week and see if there's any games that you're interested in, Robert. Is this kind of the preview to rivalry week, like the rivalry week junior, is the little brother to rivalry week? I guess there's kind of rivalries
the week
here.
Prior. Yeah.
But you get Ohio State against Michigan State, which I mean is not as big as Ohio State Michigan.
That's a maybe too.
That is maybe is we'll see what Ohio State does with all the COVID rampant going on there. Alabama and LSU.
No. Change the station.
I think it's going to be a blowout. It's so bad. And usually that's the go-to game this week. Syracuse against Notre Dame is not a big game. Clemson will take on Virginia Tech. I think if Ohio State plays, all your top four just roll.
But here's the one that my buddy Toby, who I work with, Toby Valdez, and I were talking about it as I was leaving school there today. Do you think they benched Syracuse quarterback after him clocking the ball?
Oh.
Come on, so what is going through your mind?
He is my favorite college football player because his parents were the Culpeppers from Survivor.
I laughed when I saw that. You come up, run, and then clock the ball. And no time on the clock. You got to throw it to the end zone.
I'm surprised he didn't get his torque snuffed.
Yeah. I think out of those games you listed, probably the most interesting one to me that I think could cause a little bit of issue. I know you're not 100% on Auburn, but Auburn's got a chance to shake things up. I haven't got
there yet.
Yeah, you did. You said that.
No, I stopped at Clemson, sir. You interrupted me and messed up my whole flow.
I think if we're going to get there, then let's
go. So number 5, Texas A&M takes on number 22.
I think
those numbers were last week's numbers, but I apologize.
Yeah, I think Auburn, though, does have a good chance of shaking things up in both the AP poll and the college playoff, and sending Texas A&M out of the top. I think if Auburn's got to lick their wounds after getting crushed there by Alabama this week. Look for that one. Probably be my upset and probably the game I want to watch.
My game of the week is Indiana and Wisconsin, mainly for the fact that if Ohio State cannot play, Indiana is the front runners to then go into the Big Ten championship game. So I want to see what they can do against a tough Wisconsin team who has had their own issues with COVID, and that should be a good defensive battle, and that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't normally look at the spreads quite yet, but I'm interested. I'm scrolling through to that spread.
Well, while you look that up, let's quickly look through the Pac-12 schedule, which is bleak. The Pac-12 just is so down this year. It's tough to even get excited about any of these games. I guess the big one is on Sunday, as WSU will hopefully be able to get back on the field as they will take on USC and see if they can pull off the upset there. Oregon takes on California, which could have been interesting until Oregon State got that big upset. Oregon State will take on Utah this week. The Pac-12 is just so disappointing the last few years.
Yeah, it's just there's nobody really standing out anywhere. I mean, nothing. You had Minshew mania for a year, but then that was pretty much it. I mean, there hasn't been really a standout running back or anybody that's making a name for themselves. Spread right now for the Texas game is only 6 right now for Texas. So look for Auburn. Yeah, I might take that Auburn with 6.
All right, let's move from college football to the NFL, and we got to bring back this segment because I don't know if there was ever a day like Saturday as far as news and how wild that was. And a lot of it came with the old C word. So let's go back to COVID Corner. Your favorite segment, my least favorite. And let's start with your team, sir, who are trying to ruin everything. They still have 16 players on the COVID list. That number was higher. They're able to get a few off. They were supposed to play Pittsburgh in a fantastic Thanksgiving night game to alleviate all of the family craziness and sit down and watch the good football game because the other two sucked. But nope, we can't do that. So let's play Sunday. No, we don't want to do that. Let's play Tuesday. We were going to have live NFL. You were going to be draped in black and purple and yelling at your team with RG3 as the quarterback. And no, it gets moved to Wednesday. And not only does it get moved to Wednesday, it cannot even top the Rockefeller tree lighting ceremony going on in New York. So this thing is played at like what, 12:40?
12:40 kickoff. Justin Tucker will kick the ball off at that time. But yeah, they finally got to fly out today, and they were taking 2 planes too.
The COVID plane and the non-COVID plane. Is that what we got?
I don't know, but yeah, you're right. They had like 16 people still left on the list. But with all these delays, guess who gets to come back? You get J.K. Dobbins back. You get go ahead and say Ohio State guy, and I'm not. But J.K. Dobbins has been, J.K. Dobbins been looking really good. But also Mark Henry gets to come back. So
Mark Ingram. Mark Henry's a great wrestler.
Wrestler, yeah. Well, I'm looking at Tony Barton's comment here.
We'll get there. We'll get to his comment.
Yeah, and but that's the thing. I mean, 16 players still on it, but with all this shuffling around, guess who gets to come back and play against Dallas next week? In which that game now is what, Tuesday next week. So we'll have a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday games for the NFL.
So maybe we will have a live game on Tuesday for us.
And I will dress out. I mean, that's also, I believe that's going to be an afternoon game. I could be wrong, but Lamar will get to play against Dallas, and
if he passes all his tests.
If he passes all the tests, but yeah, it just kind of ugly with all those things going on there. But I think that was not the biggest blunder in the NFL this week.
This was quite the blunder, and it is actually a 5:05 kickoff time next Tuesday for the Cowboys and Ravens. So
you will see me decked out. I will be red and black.
If you
purple and black.
Have any friends that have never listened to this show, next week's show is the one to listen to. Though I think it would be more fun to listen to you while watching the Ravens Steelers. I think the Ravens should handle the Cowboys. We should get Shannon back next week.
Well, we'll have a guest next week. We do
That's
have
true.
a guest. But I think
Shannon was here a little early. By the way, he said Dallas was supposed to win the division. Shannon is not.
But that mine is coming true. I told you that Alex Smith might turn that division around.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's stick with the old COVID. And you said you brought this up earlier, but the Denver Broncos. Again, Saturday was crazy. So Jeff Driscoll tests positive, and then the reports start coming out that Denver had told the NFL, "Oh yeah, we followed all the protocols," and then it started coming out, no, they did not. So every single quarterback, practice squad, backups, all of them had to go on the COVID close contact list because they weren't wearing their masks in the quarterback room.
Yeah, so we're talking Drew Lock, we're talking Rippon, you're talking
the return of, we could have had the return of Blake Bortles,
and then Jeff Driscoll, and all four of them. How can you? And in my notes, I said, how can you make and put that much pressure on Vic Fangio to have to make a call of, you guys are all stupid. Now you just cost us. I'm serious. Right. I mean, the more I've read into this story, and it has evolved over the last few days too, and now three of them, Bortles and Locke and Rippon have all tested negative 2 days in a row, as they released that here late this afternoon that they got their Tuesday test back. They're all negative, so they'll get to start practicing. But how can you put your teams in that much of a predicament because you don't want to wear your mask? I'm sorry,
Listen, I'm over here fighting with mine right now because it keeps trying to fall down my face, and you just deal with it.
Yeah,
we've been doing it for 9 months now, almost at this point.
But I think the best word out of all of that is Vangio just says he's disappointed, and I remember reading the article. Disappointed? That is an understatement.
I guarantee you, he used other words.
I think
to
so.
his other quarterbacks. I know Denver signed. I can't think of his name, but I want to say it's the son of the offensive coordinator, just in case.
So I missed the story about they were trying to sign a coach, assistant
So
coach.
they have an assistant coach that used to be a quarterback that they wanted to use as the quarterback because you cannot. They did not have enough time to sign somebody because if you sign with the team, you have to quarantine for 10 days or whatever it is.
Correct.
And obviously, this was Saturday when all of this went down. So they were trying to work around it by saying that they have a coach that has been tested and everything. Can we use him as our quarterback? And the NFL said no. They thought about, I think it was Philip Lindsay was the running back that they were thinking about using as the quarterback. But instead they bring up practice squad wide receiver Kendall Hinton, who played quarterback for a year at Wake Forest his sophomore year, I think, before getting injured and then coming back as a wide receiver. And we'll get to it.
And even all that too, you do that, and Lindsley got hurt, and I don't think he even came back in the second half.
And just to finish up the old COVID corner, Adam Thielen, Jonathan Taylor were two big names that missed Week 12. Thielen tested positive for COVID. Jonathan Taylor was a close contact. I think it was his girlfriend that tested positive. So, I mean, it's just running rampant. It is that time of year. Flu season's around. So I think we all thought, numbers were going to spike. We have to be a little bit more careful, and it is definitely hitting the NFL. But I have a question for you. You hit me with a trivia question last week.
All right.
And you kicked my butt. And I want to see if you can get it. I want to see if you're listening on either Facebook or YouTube and have the ability to leave us a comment, I want to see if you can get it right as well. Who is the only NFL team that has not had to put a player
I already know this one.
on the COVID list?
I already know this.
It's a simple one because I heard it on a broadcast, and I figured you would know, but I just thought it would be fun to talk about.
Yeah, I heard it too, and I have to applaud it. So, I mean, Pete Carroll, heck of a guy. I mean, he can be. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit, but for him to keep doing what he's doing with his players and all that, and to not have to deal with the C word there in Seattle, I think that's unbelievable. But the way he coached that game last night was. Ugh.
Robert is 1 for 1 on trivia questions. I got one later for him.
All right.
That'll be interesting. You are listening to the R&R Sports Report right here on KLCZ 80.9 Lewiston. You can also check us out on the R&R Sports Report on Facebook and now on YouTube. We're trying to branch out just a little bit there. So thank you everyone that is tuning in and liking our posts and commenting. And this has been so much fun. Week 9 of this show, and I don't see it slowing down at all.
No, and we've been talking about this for a few years, and to finally get the opportunity to do it and go and you and I talked about, okay, how are we going to stretch flipping the segments around again today, and how are we going to make things work? And I'm like, you and I can cover 2 hours, especially talking football, and there's no doubt about it. But go back to the Adam Thielen thing. Mm-hmm. I need him to get better. I need him for fantasy.
We're not talking
week.
Your fantasy.
I need him this week for fantasy because I lose this next guy. It just hurts. I lose him. Will Fuller suspended 6 games for a PED violation. I mean, he was on pace for another 1,000-yard season. He already had 53 receptions, 879 yards, 8 touchdowns.
And a ridiculous Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and for Will Fuller to come out, and he actually apologized. He was the one that made it known before anybody else. And so hats off to Will, but dude, you messed up. You got to check out on things. But in his behalf, you read the article, you listen to the stories, and all these people are looking at these doctors and wanting, they need to be healthy, and I understand that, but make it very clear. NFL needs to make it very clear what of these drugs are not on that list or whatever, because pharmaceutical stuff is changing all the time, and I'm not trying to blame Will Fuller and take his side, and I'm not trying to take the side of the Players Association or anything like that. But come on, guys. You know the clear line. This is what you cannot do. You got to stop doing it.
And hopefully it was just an honest mistake. I mean, I try to keep an open mind with this. I mean, we grew up watching the steroid era in baseball and everyone working the system. I think at this point, I'm going to believe a player, especially one of Will Fuller, who's not an older player. And I don't think he needed to get that edge. I just think that, like he had said on his thing, was he was taking something to come back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
His doctor said that it was cleared on the NFL list, and it was not just Will Fuller for the Texans. Bradley Roby, the cornerback, also suspended for 6 games. I could not see if it was for the exact same drug, but it's very disappointing for Houston, who's just had a very disappointing year.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say about that is you have to make it really clear. I mean, I had a doctor's appointment the day after the show last week, and I did all my pre-op stuff, mm-hmm. and they want you to list all this, and so now everything is on an app. You know, you say, okay, list all of your medications. Well, one of the medications I take, there's like 4 different variants of it, and they all have something totally different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we're at with some of these prescriptions or these medical advancements that are letting these guys play to get them healthy. You got to be very clear to the dot exactly which ones we're talking about.
So Will Fuller and Bradley Roby had bad days after their Thanksgiving game, but maybe not as bad as Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, the head coach and GM, former head coach and GM of the Detroit Lions, who were fired this weekend. Darrell Bevell is now, right? Darrell Bevell is the interim coach for Detroit, so we will see what happens there. It is the 3rd head coach already fired in 2020. I think we passed 8 once we get past Black Monday at the end of the year.
Yeah, we talked about that, whether or not it was going to be 8 or 9. I think I remember. But, you know, Bill O'Brien already gone, Dan Quinn, now Patricia. Who else makes that list? Do we talk about Doug Peterson? I mean, the way he's play called over the last few weeks with Carson Wentz, it's terrible. What about Doug Marrone? I mean, Doug Marrone, Jacksonville fires Dave Caldwell this week, the GM. Is Doug Marrone next? And then you also look at Matt Nagy. I mean, he's trying to do things with, now had to play Trubisky again in Chicago this week. How does that look with that franchise? And then we go to your guy and Adam Gase.
Good old Adam Gase. We'll talk about him.
So, I mean, I don't understand. But who is next?
You're missing one.
But I think
you're missing a big name.
Well,
Anthony Lynn for the Chargers needs to be done.
Yeah, but I think out of the names that I threw up there, I think Marrone, you're exactly right. And that's why I put him last on the list was Marrone. But I think, you know, they've already proved it there in Jacksonville. If they're getting rid of Caldwell, it's just a matter of time. Mm-hmm. It's the question, does he go before Black Monday or does he go on Black Monday?
Tony says Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's already gone. He's what, is a defensive or offensive coach for the Giants?
He's the offensive coordinator for the Giants.
First place New York Giants.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at that. You look at that team and how things are changing up there and what they're doing. And Saquon Barkley had nothing but positive. Yeah, but you see the article he had today that he had nothing but praise for the head coach up there.
Yeah.
Jason Garrett. Come on, Tony.
Now I'm blanking on the Giants head coach. Why am I?
I'm
blanking on Joe Judge. Joe Judge. He might. I mean, he's not going to win Coach of the Year, but as far as the new head coaches, he's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean,
Tony's just stay gone.
Yeah. Well, he's good. If Gruden doesn't get things squared away in Vegas, he might be a couple of years and gone too.
Speaking of gone, the 49ers are gone from Santa Clara for the next couple of weeks as Santa Clara County has banned all contact sports for the next 14 days. I think it goes longer than that. So San Francisco needs somewhere to play, so they're going to Arizona for their next 2 games. I think it's Buffalo and I don't remember. My memory is no good. But they're not only just playing their home games in Arizona, they're going to be practicing in Arizona. They're just going to live there because you cannot go back and forth. Santa Clara has a whole thing where you have to have a 2-week quarantine.
Right.
If you come in and out of their county and they don't want to mess with it.
Well, and that was the thing is we didn't know exactly where they were going to be at, and they said that they're staying pat there in Arizona at the Grand Hotel. They even said it there earlier, but they have Buffalo this coming week on Monday, and then they'll turn around and play again against Washington the next Sunday, and then they'll travel to Dallas and then come back and play Arizona in Arizona. So
yeah, just live there. Just live in Arizona.
Shanahan might as well get another home in Arizona there and just move.
Yeah, Tony says keep my Raiders out of it, Robert. We'll talk about those Raiders, Tony. I don't know if you want us to talk about them at all, but we will. Kyle, speaking of the 49ers, Shanahan believes Jimmy G and George Kittle possibly could come back and play this year. With them beating the Rams, they're still in the hunt.
That was ugly.
Which is ridiculous for how many injuries that team has suffered.
Oh,
and they're playing so hard. Deebo Samuel is so fun to watch.
I think that guy. I would put him in the same category as Metcalf.
No,
I think he's a heck of a lot better than
Metcalf. Is that the funny thing is, I would say DK Metcalf is like a Calvin Johnson, which is what the old Detroit Lions coach, who's now with whomever, had said that he wasn't yet, and that just pissed him off. He's with the Eagles now.
Yeah.
So that just made him really mad. Deebo Samuel is more of a, I'd say a poor man's Tyreek Hill. Not quite as fast, but very explosive. His whole thing is wide receiver screens and being able to break tackles and everything there.
But you're talking about Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is.
Thank you.
Yeah, that dude, he didn't know how. I mean, yeah, Calvin Johnson, one of the best ones to play ever, but DK Metcalf is just in a different realm right now.
We do have to say one more thing with COVID. Myles Garrett taken off the list, and he will be able to come back for the Browns. And the Browns have finally found a year where they're not disappointing. What is this? Finally, after 12 years, they're not going to have a losing record.
Yeah,
that's
at 8-3 right now.
They're just continue to find ways to win, even though Baker Mayfield is terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So bad, but they run the ball so well.
Yeah, Nick Chubb is. He's that team. Garrett on the one side, Chubb on the other. But they've got to find, I think, a little bit more offensive line. If get a little bit more of an offensive line there, Cleveland could be dangerous the next few years. So, speaking about the AFC North, Joe Burrow will have reconstructive knee surgery this week in LA for his ACL. So,
hopefully that goes well.
And then Indianapolis Colts punter Rigoberto Sanchez went under cancer removal surgery today. Said everything went well, and the Colts yet to sign anybody. I know they're looking, but great news that Sanchez's surgery went well. The cancer was removed, so hopefully, he's probably done for the year. But great to hear that everything went well today. So
all right, now we had COVID Corner already, and that's my least favorite segment of the show. Let's get to my favorite segment of the show, and that is Randy's Believe It or Not. A segment that is unlike anything else in radio or TV history. No buy or sells or true or false. None of that is like Randy's Believe It or Not. And I gotta use this time to talk about my New York Jets, because I saw a story this week that just made me laugh as a Jets fan, because that's all you can do at this point is just laugh at your team.
Who's left there that's any good? I mean, you're still using Frank Gore as your running back, right?
He's playing okay.
Okay. But
C.J. Mosley is technically still a Jet.
The former Raven who just opted out of this season.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. Especially after they traded Jamal Adams, I don't blame him for opting out. I see what's going on.
Adams looked good last night.
Yeah, I won't talk about it. It still hurts. Hopefully the two draft picks, first-round picks we got for him work out.
Yeah,
they won't. I mean, that's the Jets. Adam Gase, a couple weeks ago, said he was giving up play calling duties to Dow Logans. He was confronted after the game, which they lost to the Dolphins, saying that, Adam Gase, you said you gave up play calling, but we're watching you call these plays. It's like, no. Logans tells me in my headset, and then I relay it to the quarterback because that's what I'm good at. I can relay the plays so they can understand it. He says the number, and I just call it. Well, then why did we see Logans over there talking to a player for an entire drive? Well, it was the third quarter, and we wanted to do 2-minute drill, and I'm better at that. Adam Gase is the phoniest person I have ever seen coach for the NFL. How he's gotten jobs is ridiculous. Obviously, former Dolphins coach. They get swept by the Dolphins this year. They get outscored 44-3 this year. He is now 0-4 against his former Dolphins team. I now have to wear a stupid Dolphins hat at the next fantasy draft again, which I want the number 1 pick, so I wasn't even mad this year.
You need to stop making that bet. I mean, he won't bet me when we play him.
It's fine. It's just a first-round pick. But believe it or not, Adam Gase is the worst coach in the last 10 years.
I'm going to say maybe. The only reason I'm going to say maybe is I am not on Matt Patricia. After you watch what he did this year,
he is not Adam Gase level.
Oh, I tell you what, how can you have a winning percentage sub 400? I mean, that's pretty terrible. But for being play calling, and I'm not saying Adam Gase is the best play caller in the world because
he's not the best.
He's not there. I mean,
he is running off the coattails of saying that he coached Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning coached him.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. But on that hand, it is tough to call some of those plays. Have you heard some of those plays? I mean, even the middle school level, when coaching here at the middle school level, some of our play calling could be a little wordy, but it's no Sean Payton. Have you ever listened to him call one of those plays? I'm like, how is Taysom Hill able to call in some of those plays? So I think he might have convinced me.
But the funny thing is, Sean Payton will say these ridiculous names for the plays, and all they are Taysom Hill run to the right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they end up being.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think he might have changed my.
He is. He's by far the worst coach in the last 10 years, and he's going to lead the Jets to 0-16, and they're going to get the number 1 pick, and they better fire him the next day.
Yeah, they got to go.
The moment the Jets lock up the number 1 pick, Gase needs to be gone then. Mm-hmm. One more, believe it or not, for you. And Carson Wentz went 25 of 45 for only 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception against Rob Nye's Seahawks, who's listening in. Thank you, Rob. Believe it or not, Wentz is not the issue. However, he needs to be benched for the rest of the season because that offensive line, I could be playing offensive line for the Eagles for how small I am because you need a more mobile quarterback and Hurts.
Mm-hmm. I agree, 100%. And, Carson, the way he's played, he's coming back after major injury, in 2017. He led that team. Then Foles takes him to the Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl. But when do you finally pull the plug on Wentz?
I was surprised it wasn't on Monday.
I am too. I am very surprised that they didn't stay with Jalen after only having 2 plays total in that drive, and then that was it the rest of the night. But Wentz is not living up to what he was, but he is not the problem. That offensive line looked terrible.
I don't know how you can be a quarterback with an offensive line that bad.
Yeah.
I want to say they went into the game with 40 sacks on Wentz, and they got 6 more from the Seahawks. He gets the ball and is just trying to get rid of it as fast as possible. He's throwing it in terrible spots, but the whole time he's just wondering, when am I going to get hit?
What was that thing they flashed up there last night? He leads the league with 65 sacks and takeaways, I think is what it was. And Wilson was behind him at in the mid 40s. I mean, that's how far ahead Wentz is right now.
And Wilson's sacks are more because he just drags on plays a lot, looking for the big home run play. Wentz has 2 seconds, and then you better get rid of it because you're going to get hit.
You're going to get hit. And not to say anything, but, Sanders is the same way. Clement is the same way. I mean, both of them are decent running backs. They have no time. They can't open that.
That's terrible.
The offensive line can't do anything. It goes back to the same thing we talked about last week. Let's throw you in as a quarterback or, put pads on you. It's the same thing with me. Come on, throw some pads on me. Let me go play offensive line for Philadelphia, who I hate to go play in that area with that fan base. But heck, I could do a heck of a lot better. Open up holes than some of those guys do.
Rob wants to know why we're not giving Hawks credit. I mean, give full credit to the Seahawks defense. They are improving. I think as they're starting
to the key word, they're improving. They're not anything like they used to be.
No,
they're still
but
30.
They're getting
30th
healthy.
or 32nd in the league right now.
They were terrible for a long time.
So let's get off the Russell bandwagon of it was, let Russell cook because that's what it was. But now Jamal's back. Okay, they played good. They got 6 sacks on Wentz last night, but they're still the bottom of the defense in the National Football League.
They are getting there, and they have an easier schedule the next couple weeks. This was the first one that we wanted to see if they could not give up 30, 40 points, and they still leave people a little bit too open at times, and Wentz just was not able to find them. We will see if they can continue to grow as they get healthier, but they're not as bad as they were to start the season.
Yeah, but if you look at that game, though, Seattle does have the next few weeks. I think that it is the easiest schedule, but Philadelphia, it doesn't get any easier for Philadelphia. You might as well. But the key thing is there. We're in agreement that line sucks. Period. This totally sucks. But would you want to chase a chance putting Jalen out there behind that line?
Because he can at least run.
Well, yeah. I mean, but the same thing has happened. I mean, look at Sanders. Sanders was running too and running decently.
You have Carson Wentz.
He's got to sit.
You have Carson Wentz for the next 4 years, at over $20 million a year. Hurts was always there as that kind of mobile backup quarterback. Wentz is still your future in Philadelphia. I don't know if you're able to get rid of him.
He's going to be the same as Joe Flacco. And I hate bringing up Joe Flacco, but it's the same thing. You overpay him, and then all of a sudden he shits the bed. Sorry. I mean, it's true. I mean, he just but I mean, it just his way of playing is not the way we go. And I agree. I think Jalen would probably be the better option right now. But I mean, I wouldn't want a chance putting him behind that offensive line. And that offensive line just is not anything to write home about.
All right, let's look at the rest of Week 12. What I love about moving football to the first hour is we're already 50 minutes in. We have a lot of football left. And we're going to see what we can get to. We can just skip the Thanksgiving games, complete duds. Texas just run over the Lions, and the football team destroy the Dallas Cowboys.
And I even said it earlier. Alex Smith is going to turn that team around, and he actually
Antonio Gibson, sir, is turning that team around. That's a great running back. If Tony's still listening, we may run him off as the Las Vegas Raiders, who took Kansas City to the limit and almost swept them, had a complete letdown as they were looking forward to facing my New York Jets this week, I guess. They lose to the Atlanta Falcons 43-6. Would the real Raiders please stand up?
Matty Ryan did not look all that good in that game. So what happened to Carr and John Gruden's team?
I don't know. Actually, that was the most confusing game this week, because I believe the Raiders are a playoff team, and they were never in this game.
Well, I mean, yeah, you hit it exactly right. They've held Kansas City to 2 unbelievable games this year, and then for this to happen, it blows my mind what is happening. It's like, did somebody flip a switch off there in the game or what?
So we talked about, the football team beat the Cowboys. We've already talked about the Eagles. How about the New York Giants, who are now in first place in the NFC East after beating the Cincinnati Bengals without Joe Burrow 19-17.
I don't know. Jim Maydall must be doing dances with his
Well,
Giants.
yeah, well, I wouldn't get going too quickly because Daniel Jones is hurt.
Yep.
He may play this week, but it is against the Seattle Seahawks, so I might just go ahead and just sit out.
That's what I would do.
Just wait. You're not going to beat the Seahawks this week.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to get him any more hurt. You only have to win 2 games the rest of this year.
Oh, Tony.
6-10, man. They were mad because I went to Indy instead of Atlanta. It is Tony's fault. Tony, let's talk about that game as he actually went to Indianapolis and watched Tennessee Titans get mad revenge on the Indianapolis Colts as they win 45-26. And Derrick Henry, if the MVP wasn't a quarterback award, is Derrick Henry in your top 3 MVP right now with 27 carries here, 178 yards, and 3 touchdowns after winning the game against your Baltimore Ravens last week?
Oh, yeah. Hands down, I think he would be in there. But that was the same thing that happened with Seattle. You know, you come out 5-0. Russell Wilson is the MVP. Everybody's saying it. Russell, MVP, MVP, MVP. Well, then now you lose a couple of games, and you haven't heard his name in a long time. And Derrick Henry's the same thing. Tennessee is such on and off, whether or not they have a good week, have a bad week. Mm-hmm. And I think right now he's just the consistent, but, you know, the defense for Indianapolis did not look well at all against Derrick Henry.
They were not ready for Henry. They were not ready for that Henry.
They're not up to the hype of what Indianapolis has been saying, and they were number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, they're one of the top defenses. They were just not ready.
They couldn't do it
for that. We talked about earlier the Broncos situation. They lose to the New Orleans Saints 31-3. How they got 3 points, I have no idea. Kendall Hinton, that poor guy, went 1 for 9 for 13 yards and 2 interceptions. That offensive line was terrible too. I mean, I know New Orleans has a great defense, and they stopped the run really well, and they had zero worry about Hinton's arm, so they were going all in every play. But he had just no time. Anytime I watched any of that play, Taysom Hill was no better. He goes 9 of 16 for 78 yards and 1 interception as this game sets the NFL back 80 years. But my second trivia question to you, sir, is who was the Bronco to get the 1 catch?
Let's see. I don't think it. I think it was a running back, wasn't it? Went to Royce Freeman.
I'm gonna double check real quick.
I think, and I think what I was more upset.
I don't think you're right, but I just wanted to double check. Noah Fant.
Noah Fant.
Right.
So tight end
Noah Fant got the 1 catch.
But I mean, Hinton's put in a heck of a position.
No, that's terrible.
I mean, and I think Royce Freeman is the same way, and Philip Lindsay. I mean, now Lindsay gets hurt and doesn't come back second half. I mean, running out of that Wildcat offense, it's not the same as what Brown was doing when it was introduced in Miami a few years ago, and it wasn't the same. But for signing this guy off to practice squad, not having on a Saturday, and then have to, all right, let's cram and figure out what we can do with you. And I mean, it's not fair to Freeman or to Lindsay either. So, but don't take nothing away from Taysom Hill and what he's having to go through. But when was the last time you only saw 10 completions? I mean, well, look at
Mark Sanchez was the quarterback of the Jets.
Well,
I mean, 10 might have been too much back then.
But I mean, this is the first time that a non-quarterback had played the quarterback position since 1965, and I believe it was Baltimore Colts. It was Tom Matty, the halfback, and he wasn't even the starting halfback for the Colts. It was the last time that a non-quarterback started, but it was it's crazy. I mean, 10 completions total in that game. We're looking at 80, 91 yards total passing. That's crazy.
And then the main event this week, which turned out to look like a dud, but Tampa Bay able to come back and make it a game. Kansas City beats the Buccaneers 27-24 after Tyreek Hill what did he end up with in the first half? I want to say it was like 8 catches and over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first quarter.
And
Tony Romo was joking around that he was on pace for 1,000 yards in that game at one point.
Yeah, he could be. He could even be out in that conversation of MVP, but we know that's not going to go that way. But I mean, you look at what he is doing in Kansas City for Patrick Mahomes the last couple of years, and that dude's fast. He might.
That's an understatement.
I honestly,
you cannot go man to man with him.
No, honestly I don't think you're going to end up putting him to the point of he's going to break Jerry Rice's records or anything like that. But he's going to be that tier caliber player in a few more years, especially if that tandem sticks around like Manning and Harrison. And you and I had that conversation a few weeks ago when we talked about the Hall of Fame. Which combination do you like? Do you like Manning and Harrison, or do you like Manning and Hill and Ty? I mean, which combination is the best one for you out there? And I think this Mahomes and Hill combination is going to end up being in that same.
You can't say Mahomes and Hill without saying Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. That is the ultimate trio, because Hill can burn you deep. So then you cannot play man-to-man with him. You have to play a makeshift zone and put somebody over the top of Hill, which then leaves Kelsey wide open in the middle of the field.
Right.
And he is so good at just finding holes in zones. You can't play zone against Kansas City, so I don't know what you do.
Not at all.
It is 7 o'clock. We are done with the first hour of the R&R Sports Report. We got a little bit more football to talk about, but I promise we're going to get to LC Warriors women's basketball. LHS basketball season getting started
right now.
It is tipping off right about now. We're going to get to a bunch of stuff, but let's preview real quick week 13. What games on here? There's no Thursday night game.
Yeah, no, not this week. After
it was supposed to be Cowboys Ravens, right?
It was supposed to be Cowboys Ravens. Now that's a Tuesday night game.
Yeah, for now.
Until it moves again.
So there is we get a Wednesday day game, but no, and then we have to wait for Sunday. Give me one game on this schedule that you are most looking forward to.
I have to say it, and I believe it's probably going to be my game of the week, and we'll talk about that probably at the end of the show. But I hate to say it, I watched the Browns live in person almost 2 years ago in Baltimore. I think it's going to be, how does Nick Chubb go up against Derrick Henry? I mean, it's going to be two running backs down there in Nashville at each other, both of them 8-3. A lot on the line in seeding and what can happen in the AFC playoffs.
Over under that game taking 2 hours and 20 minutes with how much they're going to run that ball.
I'm going to say under, because they're going to run the ball. The clock's going to stay running the entire time. I think I would barely take the under.
It'd be interesting. My game of the week is the battle of division leader. No, I'm not. I'm not taking the Giants. How is that a battle of division leaders? The NFL is stupid. No, I'm going to go in the NFC West. Rams and Cardinals, they both had rough losses. They're both looking to bounce back. Playoff spots are on the line. 49ers have a tough game against the Bills on Monday night, but they are trying to get themselves back in it. So, especially for the Cardinals, you lose this game, and if the 49ers can pull the upset over Buffalo, and now all of a sudden you're tied for that last wild card spot, and the 49ers getting healthier, that's a big game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, that's going to be a huge thing, and I think it's the same thing in the NFC South. And I'm going to bring up one game in the NFC South, and it's just because can the Atlanta Falcons look good 2 weeks in a row? They're going up against Taysom Hill and the Saints, and I have to say, the wife is a huge Saints fan just because she's from the state of Louisiana. But can Matty Ice and those guys make it a good game against Taysom Hill, who will probably get to start again for the Saints?
Mm-hmm. And they just played 2 weeks ago, and the Saints beat them 24-9.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see what'll happen in that game. But look, look for that game to be a little interesting, especially at the records. I mean, 9-2 against 4-7, but Atlanta has looked good in those 4 wins, but then they've looked absolutely terrible in their losses, especially when Dan Quinn was still there and his defense got very vanilla.
The one thing I like about Week 13, we get 2 Monday night games and now a Tuesday night game.
Yep.
We'll have live football here on the R&R Sports Report for episode 10
and I'll be totally decked out. Purple. Just let me know. Am I wearing purple jersey? Am I wearing a black jersey?
You're going to make people turn into the radio show so they don't have to watch that.
Maybe I'll have to wear them all.
And I know our buddy Tony is excited because the Raiders face the Jets this week. Easiest when you can get on the schedule. But Robert, right now it is time. I need your top 5 in power rankings.
And, nothing for me got shook up in the top 3. I keep in the top 3.
I think the top 3 are locked.
Yeah, top 3 are locked. And again, your top 2 are a little different than my top 2. I did switch them around last week, but Pittsburgh, for me, again, number 1, Kansas City, number 2. The only reason I didn't switch them back this week is we still haven't seen what Pittsburgh can do in this long Week 12, which we'll find out tomorrow afternoon. But number 1, Pittsburgh. Number 2, Kansas City. No change there. Number 3, also New Orleans. Taysom Hill's doing a great job keeping things very close in that NFC South for New Orleans staying in the playoffs. I do move Seattle down 1 spot. They're going to be my number 5 team. Just because I think I'm more upset with the way that Pete Carroll called that game last night. I mean, and I'm screaming and just yelling, and that it might be because I was playing against Tim Lewis, Tim in fantasy. But I mean, how do you leave 6 points on the field in the first quarter? I understand 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You want to get close, you want to make things happen, but you're playing against a team that, like Philadelphia, can score really quick sometimes and shock you. And that's kind of how that team has looked this year. But I'm sorry, you can't leave points on the field.
I don't mind them going for it. I didn't like the play call.
I don't like either one of them. I mean, why are you going to try to run those 2 plays the way you did? And just silly. But then moving up, I had last week Tennessee at number 6. I move them up number 4. Derrick Henry is just a beast. Derrick Henry is a beast.
All right, so my top 4 are the same as you, just in a different order, of course. Kansas City is still my number 1. I worry a little bit about Kansas City and the fact that if they get up big, it's like they just turn off. They just don't care anymore. And they allow teams to come back, and it will bite them at some point. Do I expect them to do that in a playoff game? No. I think they would keep their foot on the gas. But they jumped out on Tampa Bay. And that could have been a huge blowout. And just they allowed Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to eke their way back into that game and almost pull off the big win. Pittsburgh, we haven't seen them yet this week. We'll see what they do against half of the Baltimore Ravens team. New Orleans, like you said, is looking fantastic. It'll be even better once Drew Brees comes back. Alvin Kamara cannot wait for Brees to come back. He is having a tough couple of games without him. And then I'm with you. I've had Tennessee in my top 5 several times. As you said, they're a bit inconsistent. But when they're on, they're fantastic. I think their defense needs to improve a little bit because that was their big bread and butter last year was the big running game of Henry and then a good defense. And they're missing the defense right now as far as being able to give Kansas City that game. I don't expect the Titans to jump out 24-0 like they did against the Chiefs last year in the playoffs.
So I'm going to throw this to you now. Your honest opinion. Tampa Bay on a bye this week. Mm-hmm. Do you see them slipping out of your top 5, sitting this week out?
Maybe. And it was really close for me to drop them out.
I mean, we're talking with the teams like Buffalo, who have been in the top 10 for the last few weeks.
So for Seattle, me, number 5 was between the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, the Bills, the Colts, the Rams. All of those teams are just wadded up in a blob. You pick one, and I don't think anyone can have a huge argument. and they're going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Right.
Okay, and then there's a huge gap between everyone else. Because Baltimore is really struggling. I guess Cleveland might be up there.
Yeah,
I just don't believe in Baker.
I think right now, Ronald Jones looked really good, for Tampa Bay. He's helped them keep them in. But them sitting them, being on the bye this week, how do you think that's going to affect your powers for next week? Because I think
it depends on what other teams do.
There's some big games this week that could shake up some stuff.
Because it was really close to putting Seattle here. It was really close to put Buffalo here. And I know we'll probably be mad that I'm not putting Seattle 5th here. I'm putting Tampa Bay, even off a loss with Kansas City, as my number 5 team. I like the resolve of that team to get punched in the mouth like that and Tyreek Hill run all over them, which was a terrible game plan in the first place. You cannot go man-to-man with somebody like Tyreek Hill. They made a good game plan change, slowed down the Kansas City offense, did not panic, stayed in their game plan and worked their way back. I like the veteran leadership of Tom Brady. I think them finally getting this bye week is going to help this team. As I still think Tom Brady's not the perfect fit for Tampa Bay. They want to throw that ball deep. They have amazing receivers that can go 30, 40 yards down the field, and Brady just can't do that anymore. So now that you have this week off to kind of reset things and go for that push in the last 4 weeks, the defense is still very good. Like you said, Ronald Jones is starting to step out. I know Bruce Arians came out and said that Ronald Jones needs to touch the ball 20 times. And we all know that Arians is the second biggest liar in the NFL behind Adam Gase.
Well, what I was going to say, and it'll be my last comment for NFL football for this week, but I think the biggest thing is what is being, I don't want to say shoved down our throats by the media, but I think the media is making more of this whole issue with Bruce Arians and Tom Brady than
well, you need something to talk about.
I mean, and I think that's half of the problem. I think we said it. We both talked about it. This is probably the best receiving core that Tom Brady has ever had, and then and Ronald Jones has looked really well. Fournette has not looked this year. I mean, he's had an up and down, but as far as receivers, I mean, he's got a great crew there, and I think if they get off that idea of Bruce Arians, everything, and Tom Brady, they don't like each other. Come on, media, move on, find a different story. Let's go talk about something else.
They absolutely love going with Tom Brady, and it was them and Bill Belichick all last year, so it's the same. Let's finally move off of the NFL and football. Let's get into some local sports, as it is 31 degrees outside. But the women got to play a couple games in Montana this last weekend. And they go up against MSU Northern on Friday and get a big win, 75-66. Jansen Edmondson leads the way, 17 points. Abby Johnson, who was on the show a few weeks ago, gets a double-double, 12 points, 13 rebounds. Brian Orr really liked how everyone was working together, especially I cannot imagine what this team has had to go through, and the men's too. We still don't even know when the men are finally going to see the court, but to have last year canceled and then have practices work a little differently now and be unsure of when you were going to play, and then get your schedule and get so hyped, and then get some positive tests and see all of that go away, and then just kind of throw this together, which all of college basketball is doing right now. I think I heard it on the Gonzaga game the other day where they're basically going, I have a squad. Do you have a squad? Cool. Where do you want to play? Let's just play right now.
I mean, it's the same thing with the college football, and we'll get to that one here with, one of the games from this last weekend, just last minute get thrown together. I mean, that C word has really affected everybody's mindset, and we see it a little bit more here in the Valley setting, I think, because, you look at, UI getting a few games, slowly getting in there. LCSC finally starting to get some play time. But then you look up north and you see, all right, Gonzaga's getting to play. Cougars are finally getting to play. But then what about all these high school schools? Washington high school schools still not even a sniff of practice. And we won't get to see anything until January now for any kind of practices. And how does that look for these guys that are in this area that, this valley thrives on basketball this time of year? Because, I mean, look at the games that you and I have called over the last few years for both Clarkson and Lewiston, and also Asotin with their games. It's huge to see that much stuff and how one pandemic is causing such turmoil into this area.
And this is usually about the time in the 4 years I was working with Nelly that we were starting to figure out, okay, we have this Avista tournament coming up.
Yeah.
Who's going to work what days? And that was jam-packed always. But
and it was always, okay, who's doing what this week and what do we got? I mean, how many times are we on the road to Spokane, or how many times are we on the road to north, to Coeur d'Alene or Rathdrum and all that place? And so it's just tough for this crew, but to be able to come away and see this LC team there on Friday get a win, it brought back a little bit of a spark, and we, seeing a little bit in the papers and the radio, hearing, okay, LC played, let's keep going.
And Coach Brian Orr did say in an interview on lcwarriors.com, if you want to check that out, it was very a sign of things to come for the next day, as he said that the team got pretty tired in the second half. It's going to take a little bit. You don't have these warm-up games and the exhibition games and trying to get things going. So it's just trying to get back into shape, and that really showed the next day when they take on rival Carroll College. And it was 46-37 at halftime. Carroll College leading the Warriors, a pretty close game, and then the wheels completely fall off of the Warriors. They just, as Brian Orr says, too many days off to be able to return with protocols and then playing back-to-back days. Carroll College outscores the Warriors 53-11 in the second half to win that game 99-48. Kiara Burlage leads the way with 15 points. Edmondson with 10. Abby Johnson has 8. One of those games you just forget about.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit to get that endurance going and get your feet underneath you. Of course, now, do you even play again in December and you don't have that chance to get those feet underneath you? But just I don't know if I don't think they made a shot in the fourth quarter. Just I think they were exhausted at that point. Give it up to Carroll College. It's a really, really good team, but they are not 53-11 better than the Warriors.
Yeah, it's all about conditioning. I mean, they just to go from having practice and practicing there in August to, all right, guys, got to stop, and then come back and get, one here, one there, and then the COVID hits with all of them, and they all have to sit out again. So for me, I mean, it's conditioning. I mean, once you get that body started, and I even see it on the football field at the high school level and the junior high level. Once you get into that conditioning, the first few days of the conditioning absolutely sucks. These guys are panting and tired and can't do anything. But by about day 4, 5, 6, and even into day 20, conditioning is like a piece of cake. I mean, you're able to do it, and your body is ready for it and can do it. And I think that's just what happened to the girls this week. I mean, back-to-back games, there was just
back-to-back games after you have all your COVID protocols and not being able to practice as much. It was just the perfect storm.
Well, I mean, and look at some of these players, and like WSU and Gonzaga and those guys, that if they did test, football team wise, or for those guys, or even Oregon, and when they get tested multiple times during the week, and if you've tested positive, I mean, they're dealing with all of those, the lung issues and breathing, and how many of these kids get checked out with their athletic trainers, or even to the hospitals get checked just to make sure and see. I mean, it's a hard thing for these athletes to be doing, and take nothing away from Carroll College. Carroll is a great basketball team. I think it's just trying to get in the conditioning mode and getting there. And LC and Coach Orr will get these guys going, and it's going to be a good season.
And again, there is nothing on the schedule right now for the women or men. The CCC schedule is supposed to start in January, but we will see if we get some games put together for the Warriors. Definitely check it out, lcwarriors.com for that schedule. We'll try to keep you updated here on KLCZ 88.9 as well. But let's move on now to the high school level, and Lewiston's getting going.
Yeah, lots of games happening here. in the area tonight. Just alone, Moscow tips off, just tipping off about 20 minutes ago against Genesee. Nez Perce and Grangeville, they're probably close to being done. And also on the boys' side, Prairie taking on Timberline. Weippe, 7:30 tip there. They're about ready to get underway. But like you said, the girls for Lewiston are playing at home tonight against Lake City. And hopefully we'll get a score update from athletic director Corey Williams. Hopefully he'll send us a text, let us know where we're at with that game. But, Potlatch versus Genesee, Kamiah, Prairie, Grangeville, and Nez Perce. Some of these games starting to happen here in the Valley at the high school level. And I miss seeing that gym and how full it's going to be, because right now even Lewiston is not allowing any fans in up at the gym.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very weird to play as well. Just to kind of give you a schedule for the Lewiston Bengals on the girls' side, they have already got a game in. They beat Moscow on the 21st, 63-45.
And we didn't talk about that a second ago. Lewiston has a new coach now, and that is Carly Wilson, the alum here from Lewiston. She did coach in Moscow the last couple of years. Now she is down coaching for her alma mater in Lewiston. So great win against her former ball club.
And again, they are tipping off right about 20 minutes ago against Lake City. They will be playing on Saturday against Sandpoint at 3 p.m. here in Lewiston. And then they'll be on the road next Tuesday against Post Falls on the road at 7 o'clock. The boys are going to start their season on Friday as they host Sandpoint at 7 o'clock on Friday. And then they're on the road on Saturday to take on Timberlake at 3 p.m. So basketball getting going on the Lewiston side. Of course, as we talked last week, Clarkson still has to wait till February now.
Yeah, if we get there to February, because now it's just going to keep shrinking in games. Now we're down to like a 12-game schedule if it even happens. But absolutely no practicing right now. I saw an email earlier today that nobody's going to be meeting until after the Christmas break. So it'll be interesting to see how and if things change from WIAA and what Governor Inslee is saying. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. NCAA time, and it is Jimmy V week on ESPN. Obviously, they do all those crazy foundations, all the donating on there. If you have not seen that speech, it is probably the greatest speech of all time.
Yeah, I had to watch it again today. I saw it today, so I might post that to our Facebook page. But a great thing, Jimmy Valvano, and what he meant to NCAA basketball and that, and how it has turned around and included some of these greats that have been involved with this foundation, especially like Stuart Scott, one of my favorite sports broadcasters of all time, dealing with his cancer and him losing the battle. So if you would like to donate to those, you can go to v.org/donate or v.org/Stuart to make a donation. And remember, all 100% of the donations go straight to cancer research. So it's great things there. For make sure if you've got a couple extra dollars to donate, that might be a good thing to do, because we all know somebody that has either survived from cancer or we've lost from cancer, especially in my family and I mean even anybody's family. But a couple of great foundations to do.
Looking at the rankings this week, not a lot has changed, and you don't expect it unless you get a big upset. Gonzaga 1, Baylor 2, Iowa 3, Wisconsin 4, and Illinois is your number 5 team on the men's side. On the women's side, it's South Carolina, Stanford, UConn, Baylor, and Louisville, who it seems like it's a top 5 every year at this point. Robert, have you seen what South Carolina did in their opener this year?
I did not see that.
And I feel really bad for the College of Charleston to have to bring this up, but I feel like nobody on that team listens to the R&R Sports Report. It's just a guess.
Mm-hmm. Probably not.
But the South Carolina Gamecocks won their season opener, 119-38.
We're talking about embarrassment there.
That's rough.
Well, when do you stop?
That's really rough. They didn't slow down. I mean, they slowed down in the fourth quarter. They only scored 23 points.
Yeah, but when do you slow down enough to just let the clock get down to 5 or 6 seconds before you do something?
That team is going to be scary. Gonzaga, we'll get to Gonzaga on the men's side. That team looks really, really good too. Couple of games to look for this week on the basketball side. Tomorrow, if you don't want to watch RG3 and the Ravens play, well, I guess this will probably be after. If you still in the sports mood, 12:40 for the football game. I'm sure this is an afternoon game. Number 2 Baylor is going to take on number 5 Illinois before their big game against Gonzaga this weekend. We'll talk about that. On Sunday, you have number 12 Villanova against number 17 Texas. And then next Tuesday, you got some fun ones. You got number 9 Creighton against number 7 Kansas, number 14 North Carolina against number 3 Iowa, and number 5 Illinois with another big game as they're going to take on Duke, who ended up losing tonight against Michigan State 75-69. So they were ranked 6th. They will not be by the time that game gets going.
You know, and you and I were watching the ticker there before we went live and watching the Oklahoma State and the Marquette game, but to see Duke was down by 15 at halftime, I mean, that's just crazy to see some of those numbers. You know, Duke has always been there. It'll be interesting to see, Izzo had his team ready to go, I think, and didn't want to. But, you know, it is college basketball and anything can happen. As right now, Kentucky leads Kansas 32-22. Is the Jayhawks still licking their wounds from the Gonzaga Bulldogs game?
It's a tough game. Kansas is a pretty good team, but Gonzaga looks so good. So luckily it was early enough on Thanksgiving that I was able to watch all of this game before we went over to my mom's for all the Thanksgiving festivities. But the Zags put up 102 points against the then number 6 Kansas Jayhawks. Drew Timme with 25. Jalen Suggs, the freshman, with 24. Corey Kispert was fantastic. He had 23 points as well. They shot 64% from the field, did the Zags, in that first game of the year, again, to beat Kansas 102-90.
Yeah, and I even texted you. Unfortunately, I got suckered into watching myself, getting suckered into watching basketball or football, and I ended up watching the 11-minute highlight reel of the entire ball game of Gonzaga, and they just looked unbelievable. You know, Nemhard looked great with 11 points off the bench. I think that guy's going to lead the team in assists. You know, he was able to find, but the guy that still stands out, and I hate, and I'm not going to say the freshman. I'm not. I mean, Jalen looked good. He didn't have near this game 2, but is Drew Timme. Drew Timme was just everywhere. He was in the paint with the left hand. He was in the paint with the right. You know, and able to make things happen. The float shots in the paint. I mean, he was unbelievable during that game, and it was all about Drew Timme in that one.
And then they played the next day on Friday. I didn't get to watch this game live, but they do beat Auburn 90-67, just embarrassed them. Drew Timme again led the way with 28 points. Corey Kispert with another 25-point game. Suggs struggled a little bit with just 12. And Gonzaga, shooting-wise, shot only 52% and still put up 90 points. This offense is so scary, and they're so fast.
Well, I think part of it is seeing where they are in the depth. I mean, with Ayayi come off the bench, Nembhard, it's going to be the way they were interchanging all these guys. And I mean, it was a different combination every time you were out there. But I think the main thing is you looked at how many minutes that some of these players had. Drew Timme, I think he was like 36 minutes in both ball games. So I mean, he's playing. Same with Kispert. I think those guys are going to lead this team, Kispert and Timme, and if they've got this flash of a guy that everybody's worried about with Jalen Suggs, look out, NCAA. It's going to be a good run for the Zags, and the town of Spokane.
And then you look at the games this week, and that, oh my goodness, you thought them playing Kansas was fantastic on Thanksgiving. Tomorrow at 4:00, about the time that you're wiping the tears off your face after the Ravens lose to the Steelers.
Hey, Ingram and Dobbins are back. RG3 can run. I mean, we haven't seen RG3 in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, heck yeah. As soon as that game's over, I mean, right, I'm going to be right over on the Zags game.
Gonzaga versus West Virginia. I'm going to have a lot of fun in my podcast chat. Jason Teasley roots for West Virginia. So we're going to have some fun there. And then on Saturday, the big one, number 1 Gonzaga versus number 2 Baylor. That'll be on Saturday at 10 a.m. on CBS. And that's the one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of that Jimmy V Classic then getting played there in Indianapolis. So it is going to be unbelievable game, number 1 against number 2. You know, right now we'll see where things end up. But if the Zags can keep playing the way they are, distributing the ball, and then that's the thing, is that you watch them play, they were moving the ball around quite well. And it wasn't just one person, you know, out of the other. You know, Drew looked good in both games, and he was still even looking around, you know, getting the ball to other people. But I looked at Timmy to be that guy this year for Gonzaga.
But hey, Robert, Gonzaga is not the only local team off to a good start.
No, and you look at the Cougs. They looked okay.
They won their 2 games.
They won their 2 games. Let's start at that. But the Cougars ended up playing Texas Southern. Let's see, 25th. So that was Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So Wednesday they ended up playing, led by Isaac Bonton. He ended up with 28 points, 7 rebounds. 38 minutes played, but I think the thing for me in that game was 1 for 13 in the first half. 1 for 13. You can't keep playing basketball with a 1 for 13. And I know he's going to be the main look. We know Ellaby is not there this year. He's going to be the main look for Wazoo. But, you know, 21 points in the second half, it was like a light switch went off for Bonton. But some of the shots that he was putting up in that first half there Wednesday was just not even. It just didn't look right. But good thing. I mean, look at what the Cougs did. They shot only 28%. They were 14 of 50 in that ball game.
And still won. I mean, it is Texas Southern, and a Pac-12 team should beat a team like Texas Southern.
But they won in the last minute.
But you win with shooting 28%. You're going to take it. And then a couple of days later, they beat Eastern Washington 71-68. And our boy, Brandon Chatfield, saw the court, got himself 4 points in 9 minutes of play. We've called several Chatfield games over in Clarkston.
Yeah, Brandon, he looked really good. 2 for 2. And he did get some time in the game against Texas Southern, but didn't take a shot or anything like that. But Cougars ended up beating Eastern 71-68. Noah Williams with 19 points, but I think what I was more impressed with, other than the Cougars coming back and shooting 39% on, still not up where it should be,
right,
but 39% from the field goal. But I think what's been consistent is seeing what they are doing from the free throw line again. In the game against Texas Southern, almost 75%, 70% against Eastern. But I think the big thing for me that stood out is the Cougs can't win if they're going to keep shooting under 40%. I mean, we're talking 30% and 40% for 2 games. They have to do something different.
And they're already getting ready to play Pac-12 games.
Yeah,
they play Oregon State tomorrow at 7:00, and then on Saturday, no time yet on here, but they will take on Colorado on the road. So they're already into the Pac-12 schedule. So hopefully they can figure out their shooting, but they are 2-0, and that's obviously all that matters at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's go now to the NBA, and we get a little bit of news here. Not a lot, but Boston Celtics, Kemba Walker will miss the start of the 2020-21 season as he has a stem cell injection in his left knee. That just doesn't sound fun. And he had that in October to do a strengthening program to try to get back. It looks like he will possibly be back in January, so he won't miss a ton of time. But still, stem cell injection in the left knee just doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, not at all. And they're putting out a 12-week program for him, so look for him. They were talking about him coming back on the court here probably in the next week or so to start getting some practice, getting conditioning back up. They have ruled out him playing anything before probably week 2 in January, as they were reporting there tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what the Celtics do with Walker going on. But the other big news, 36-year-old Andrew Bogut from Australia decides he's going to retire after 15 years playing. He was the number 1 pick by the Milwaukee Bucks, and then won the championship in 2015 with the Golden State Warriors. So gonna see him retire. He's not going to end up. He was wanting to play basketball for the Olympic team for Australia, and then now everything's getting pushed back and all that. And he says, my body just can't do it anymore. But we're talking about a 7-foot guy that's almost 200, and I think he had him at 280, I think, weight wise. But I mean, it's hard on your body after 15 years.
Yeah, and he had a solid career. Ends up winning championship with the Warriors in 2015. Just the game has changed so much, where a player like Bogut doesn't get utilized as much in the NBA. So it would be interesting if everything clears out and the next Olympic Games come around to see if maybe he decides he wants to play as a supporting role in the Olympics for Australia. I mean, at that point, just play 10 minutes, just kind of be that big name for the team, just kind of a ceremonial person on the team. Speaking of the Warriors, 2 players test positive, so their workouts are delayed. As I want to say, not training camps, I think, start tomorrow.
I think you're right.
It's right around that time, but obviously for the Warriors, they're going to have to delay it a bit. And then you put this on here. And these are cool.
I'm going to share this. I didn't want to share it early. I'm going to share it here tonight after the show. But NBA comes out with their cool new uniforms and some court designs, and it was really cool to go through that article today and look and see some of the unbelievable looking jerseys. Which one was your favorite?
Well, for one, I realized there's no Knicks on here at all. So the Knicks maybe just haven't announced it yet, or they're just not cool enough. Maybe the NBA forgot they're an NBA team. But mine is that weird mix of old school and new school.
Right.
And to me, I look at the Indiana Pacers. I love the pinstripes with the dark blue and the yellow that I remember seeing Reggie Miller in the 90s. And they kind of give that a sleek new look to it on top of it. And then the San Antonio Spurs, who have a new look, but they have the stripe that you again saw David Robertson play in the early 90s play. So that mix of old school and new school is really cool to me. And then one that I didn't put on our sheet, but is clever. I like the Clippers and the cool font design that they have on there as they go for the black jerseys, as they try to oust the Lakers as the team in LA. I like their look as well.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks ones was okay. They were talking about the Martin Luther King jersey and all that. I wasn't impressed with the Boston Celtics one. How do you mess with the green and white?
It's so terrible.
But all they do is put the words Boston Celtics on top. The Nets ones looked pretty cool, but I was more impressed with what OKC was and theirs. But I think the one that really got me was Phoenix, and how it was kind of the cityscape, and I think that's the one that's going to stand out for me. I agree with you. I think also the New Orleans one wasn't bad. I mean, it was it looked like the Mardi Gras colors with the gold and the purple and a little bit of red. The OKC reminded me like the old style striped tennis shoes that we had years ago. But it was really cool with the pinstripe along with the red and the white and the black. It looked really sleek. But I don't know. There was just something about that Phoenix one. Haven't seen almost like the correct me what the new game is with these kids that have all the blocks and all. Was it Mindscape or
Minecraft?
Minecraft.
You're showing your age. Really
I know.
Minecraft.
But it was that looks like that staggering with the colors of the city background, the background of Phoenix. I think that's probably my favorite. Well, I'll post that on our website here later tonight.
And then just an honorable mention. Check this out too. The Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah,
I like their jerseys. The Buzz City thing is weird to me. And I do not like that court.
No,
they're one of the few that shows the court. I like simple on the court.
Right.
Just give me the logo in the middle, the NBA logos on the side or whatever. You want to know what the worst court is in America? I'm not even talking NBA. I'm talking college basketball now. I probably actually hate this court more than I hate the Eastern Washington right field. If Paul's still watching, he's going to laugh because I always made him change the channel when he would put that on at Lancers. The Oregon Ducks.
Their basketball court.
Their basketball court with the tree stuff. It is so distracting.
Yeah, especially trying to look at the 3-point line around there too and how they blended in. Mm-hmm. It's tough to look at that court. I mean, I don't.
What is your favorite basketball court or least favorite court? Let me know in the comments because
I know which one mine.
What's yours real quick? We got 20 minutes left. Holy cow.
Mine has to be. I think my favorite one is of all time and probably still will be for the eternity is probably Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing the Garden and how that was set up, I think that's probably the best one of all time.
For sure.
I do miss the Seattle Supersonics with the way they had it. The original Seattle Supersonic logo on the middle of the court. I think that was probably easy close number 2, but I think Boston probably hands down.
Let's hit baseball just for a minute. Not a lot has happened in the last week. Mike Minor signs with Kansas City to a 2-year deal. Cincinnati does a trade, swapping off some pitchers and center fielder Hanna, to the Colorado Rockies. Jeff Hoffman is an okay pitcher, so nothing big there. Michael Taylor, who's a speedy guy out of the Phillies, is going to sign with the Kansas City Royals as well to join Mike Minor.
I was surprised that was only a 1-year deal. 1 year for 1.7. I was surprised he didn't go two.
He's so inconsistent with the bat. He's super speedy. Honestly, I could see him just being a pinch runner.
Yeah.
For that team. So not a ton happening out of MLB. Again, they love the slow burn as far as the offseason goes. And winter meetings are getting ready to start, and that's usually when you'll start seeing more of the bigger names go as the agents for these players can get with all of these teams. It's probably going to be a lot different this year with all the COVID restrictions and stuff, but that's usually when we start seeing the bigger names go.
Right. Tomorrow is the final day for teams to make their decision on whether or not they keep their team players if they can really go up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Things will pick up.
Yeah, especially with those couple. There was a couple that they kind of dropped hints of they're going to sign. They're still not official, so we're not gonna say them quite yet because we're still not 100% if they're gonna sign with them. Well, but crazy numbers for a couple of them.
Rob Knight says Mariners rebuilding. When do they not rebuild? When is that a time where they don't?
Dude, Rob Knight knows that I'm a huge Mariner fan, and we've been doing it for way too long. We gotta make something happen. I mean,
hey, I'm sure the Mets will retrade you Robinson Cano.
No. He is going to be out. He's probably done.
He's done for the year, and he may never
play in the United States ever again.
All right, let's move on to those sports that just don't get a lot of love on the radio. Perfect time here. We got 15 minutes left. And let's talk about bowling just for a few minutes, but we're going to turn it into something a little fun. But the PBA Clash was this weekend, or at least they showed it this weekend. I'm sure they filmed it months ago. And I love this format as an all-star thing. So basically, it was each of their league teams picked one bowler, And those bowlers went out and shot one shot. And whoever threw the lowest score was eliminated. And you just do that round after round, eliminating one person. And if there's a tie for that last place, those bowlers then have to bowl again until you eliminate somebody. You just do that over and over until you have a winner. I love it. You get so much fun out of it. There's so much pressure on the one shot. I like the team aspect of it, that you're using the PBA League teams where the team representative wins money and then the team also wins money.
Right.
So they're there rooting them on. It's really fun, but it brings up the question, what is your favorite all-star event out of all sports? What's that one event, whether it's slam dunk contest, home run derby?
I was going to say, when I was very young, and I remember watching this at my aunt's house growing up, it was around the holidays, and the holidays was probably watching the slam dunk contest and watching Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. As a kid, that was my favorite thing, was watch what Nick could do. Nick could dunk like nobody's business, and I still think he's probably one of the best dunkers to ever play the game. And nothing against Vince Carter. Vince Carter was a heck of a guy. Go to the rack. I don't think the Atlanta Hawks got a lot of love back in the 80s, even with Spud Webb and Neek playing. Those guys, they made me want to watch. And then I got into really watching Michael Jordan play with Horace Grant, Scottie Pippen, those guys, and then seeing the duel between, Irvin Johnson and Larry Bird. But I think if I was younger, in the younger time, it was all about the dunk contest. It was like, ooh, yeah. As I got older, I think it was the home run derby, because then I got to watch the kid. I mean, bouncing balls off of the warehouse, and when I went back to Baltimore 2 years ago, that was the very first thing I did, is I started looking, because they put those little plates, and I think I remember sending you pictures of seeing all the little plates where the home run balls were coming down in the walkway and all that. And so I think if you're talking younger, it's the dunk contest. Now it's more about the home run derby, but as much as I love football, the Pro Bowl just doesn't do anything for me.
And Tony does bring up the NFL Skills Challenge, which I wish they would do more with.
I wish they would too.
They brought it back, and that's a positive. But it's still a little jokey to me.
Yeah.
I loved when we had the kickers do tic-tac-toe, and that was only there for one year. I want to see them bring that back more. I think the NFL Skills Challenge would be my favorite if they would do more with it. I don't need to see them play dodgeball.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. That's the older style skills challenge.
Yes.
What we saw Peyton Manning do, when he was the rookie, and I forget which NFL game, and I'd have to ask Doof. I remember sitting in my house years. They'd come over and we'd play the NFL challenge on
it's probably NFL Quarterback
Maybe
Club.
That's what it was. Quarterback.
Yeah, Quarterback Club's a little older.
So,
it was like Super Nintendo times, but they always had those weird competitions.
Well, listen, I never had one of those game consoles until I was almost a senior in high school, I think, and that was the very first one. And it was a Super NES to come out. We're talking Mario Brothers then.
Tony agrees with me.
Yes,
so I was right. No, I've never played a video game in my life. Don't look at my house.
I have to admit that case that you and Haley did, that looks unbelievable.
She did a great job painting that.
Now you and I are going to have to hit the road like we did here a few years ago up there in Spokane, and hit all those stores and see if we can find the rest of those games to fill out that rack.
I got 32 left out of the 296. Or the N64 games. If anybody's listening that has N64 games, I'm looking for 32 of them to fill out my collection.
Look for that list later.
Right. My answer to this is probably with you. Probably the home run derby, especially these last few years where you get the battle of Stanton versus Judge, was really, really good. I like the time limit instead of the 10 outs.
Right, I do too.
I think it keeps it fresh. The NBA slam dunk contest is really hit or miss with me.
It's not, like I said, it's not like what it was years ago with Meek and Jordan and Spud Webb doing that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not the same as what it is now.
But speaking of the slam dunk contest, we had boxing this weekend, kind of. And before we get to the main event, before we get to the main event, the mid main, I guess, the second main, was YouTube moron Jake Paul. I hate that guy. Absolutely hate that guy.
Yeah, he's no.
And his brother. He actually knocks out former NBA star and 3-time slam dunk champion and former New York Knick, who made the mistake of wearing Knicks colors to the boxing match, which just doomed him. Nate Robinson. Jake Paul knocks him out in the second round, and I don't know if Nate Robinson's lived it down yet. It was a big knockout too. It wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I didn't really get to see that one. I was more laughing at the main card, but come on, Nate, you got to hold things up a little bit.
And then we had Mike Tyson fight in 2020 against Roy Jones Jr., who I'm not a big boxing fan, but Roy Jones Jr. was my favorite boxer growing up. Just watching him move around. He tried to do that a little bit in his fight on Saturday. They're both in their 50s, but I'll give it to them. They went out there. It wasn't for show. They were going at it. Went for an unofficial draw after 8 2-minute rounds, so they both got a belt. And I'm sure if nobody got knocked out, they were just going to call it a draw anyways. But they got paid. Jones Jr. got $3 million for that fight. Mike Tyson got $10 million for that fight.
I don't understand the discrepancy in how much.
It's just name value.
I mean, Jones was a heck of a boxer back then. But I mean, maybe that might be a question we throw out here for next week to talk about is who is probably your favorite one? Whether
we can bring
whether
that
it's
up. There's some good ones.
Marvelous Marvin Hagler or Larry Holmes and some of those. And I know I'll hear it from Pop. My Pop will let me know who the best one is.
It's Rocky Balboa, and that's not even close.
Hey, a quick score update. Mr. Corey Williams sending us a text here at the R&R Sports Report. Lewiston right now down 13-21 with 3:30 left to go in the second quarter at the new Lewiston High School gymnasium.
Yeah, I forget they're not playing a booth hall. I put booth hall over, and that's how you change it.
Yeah. I had to do it a couple.
I want to go check. I still haven't checked out the new school.
I haven't either. And Corey and Kevin, I have been inside the admin area, which is very nice. I've been in there a couple times. I did walk in there the very first time into Lewiston High School, and as you can see here on the show, and I don't know if we planned it this way or what. I'm wearing my Clarkson football shirt. You're over there wearing your purple ambush Bengal shirt, but I walked in with some red and black, and some of these students turned and looked at me, and a couple of the admin looked at me and I said, "I'm just bringing color to this school." And I walked on into the offices. They kind of laughed at me.
All right, sir, you got 3 minutes to give me this week in sports history.
Here we go. This week in sports history, November 26, 1979, the International Olympic Committee votes to readmit China after being out for 21 years. November 26, 1996, baseball owners approved the interleague play with a vote of 26-4. In 1870, New York Times dubs baseball the national game. That was before they threw the word pastime in there. So,
it wasn't in the past though.
Yeah. Well, it's still getting old. It's getting older.
And calling baseball the national game is like calling the Dallas Cowboys America's team anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, I love baseball.
Here's one for you race car drivers. November 28, 1895. Yes, I'm saying 1895. America's first car race organized by the Chicago Times-Herald happened. They raced from Chicago to Evanston and back. There were 6 cars. They went 55 miles, and Frank Drury wins at an average of 7 miles an hour. So there you go. First race in the area. November 29, 1934, Chicago beats Detroit 19-16, and it is the first NFL game broadcasted nationally. In 1976, Reggie Jackson signs as free agent to a 5-year deal with the New York Yankees. I know I had to add a Yankee thing in there for you.
You do it every week, and I appreciate it. I actually just did a paper on Reggie Jackson for one of my college things and communication, so it was fun looking at that. I actually used a Lewiston Tribune article as one of my notations.
Did you have to use the microfiche? Did they still have the microfiche over in the library?
I don't know. I found it. I just was Googling it, and that's what popped up was a Lewis and Tribune article.
Oh, that's
crazy.
All
right, you got a minute.
All right. November 30th, November 30th, 1993, the NFL announces the 30th franchise, the Jacksonville Jaguars. December 1st, 1988, NBC bids a record $401 million to broadcast the rights to the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona. And one that stuck out to me, November 30th, 2013, the 78th Iron Bowl, where the Auburn kick six comes back. Auburn wins that one 34-28 over Bama as Cade Foster attempts a 57-yard field goal, misses it, and Auburn's Chris Davis fields it and runs it back 109 yards. And they ended up winning, and that was number 4 Auburn knocking off the number 1 Bama, and Bama slips all the way down to number 7. But that play was part of the 2014 ESPY for the best game and the best play of the year. So
and well deserved.
Yeah. All right, your trivia question.
Let's do it.
All right.
I gotta get redemption.
Yep, and I don't think you're gonna get it.
Sweet. You're really mean.
I'm gonna go back to one of the things of history. In November 26, 1996, baseball owners approved interleague play with a vote of 26-4.
You're going to ask me the 4 people that said no.
Who are the 4 no votes? I will give you one hint, and I did put that down that I was going to give you one hint. All of the no votes
in the National League.
Came from the American League.
Whoa, I would have been way wrong. I thought the National League, because they didn't want the DH, would have said no.
So who are the 4?
Wow. I'm just going to throw random teams out and see what happens because we got 2 minutes. Detroit.
No.
Yeah, well, I'm out. Baltimore, New York, Boston, and Toronto.
No, you're wrong on all of them.
Sweet.
Yeah, only one AL West team. That was Oakland, and the others all come from the Central.
And all from the Central except for Detroit.
Chicago, Kansas City, and Cleveland were your teams that said no to interleague play. Do you think that was the best thing that happened to MLB?
It's the worst thing that happened to MLB. It ruined the World Series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
I like the American. We'll get into this. This should be a topic next week, if we were able to talk anything other than your Ravens game. Because I have a lot. I have a lot to say about that.
I already have my secondary computer. You know that. I'm gonna probably pull it up with my dish on there where I can have that game, and I'll sit it right here on the side where both of us can watch it.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. I think it was a terrible move, and I still hate it. I'm a traditionalist that way. Give me your game to watch this week.
I wrote down, and it's hard for me all the time to get away from picking just one game, but I'm going to go back, and with college basketball going on, but I am going to go back to NFL. I think the biggest game of the weekend is going to be, what is Cleveland going to do? Nick Chubb going into Tennessee, into Nashville, taking on Derrick Henry, a pair of 8-3 teams. That is your game to watch this weekend.
For me, it is the Gonzaga Bulldogs against the Baylor Bears, Saturday at 10 a.m. on CBS. It beats all of the NCAA football games.
I think the other only NCAA football game that I might watch is going to be 9-1 Liberty taking on 9-0 Coastal Carolina.
That'd be a good one. Liberty got back to rank, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember if they did or not. I didn't.
So it could be a battle of 2 ranked teams.
Yeah, Coastal is sitting at number 20. So.
All right. So if you have hung out for these 2 hours, we thank you so much. If you missed the show, you can check it out on the YouTube page or search R&R Sports Report. Give us a sub there. You can find it on Facebook under R&R Sports Report. Give us a follow there. We hit 400 this week. That's insane.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
And we have to really push this. And part of our guests last week, and you guys sharing and adding this thing and throwing it out there and seeing the area high school people looking and watching and doing that kind of stuff. And
I promise we're going to hit way more high school sports once we get that rolling again. We've been wanting to do the show for years, and then we finally get to do it, and then everything is shut down. We have nothing to talk about. But thank you guys so much. We will be back next week from 6 to 8 p.m. Watch Robert react live to his Baltimore Ravens. It's our 10th edition of the show. And just so you know, if you're listening to us on 88.9 I have no idea what the situation is here at the sub building at LC for when the college break happens. So if you do like listening to us and you listen to us on the radio, we might not have access to this room during Christmas break. I'm unsure of that right now, but we will have the show still. We'll do it on Facebook and YouTube if that's the case. We're not going to miss a week. We love doing this too much. So, but for Robert, I'm Randy. Thank you guys so much. Guys, we've hit December.
We are here.
We're at the end of 2020. But for now, Robert and I are out. All right. Thank you, guys. We just watched most of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Really loud. We will see you next week. Thank you.
See ya.